at my wedding, the air smelled like frosting and perfume so thick it sat in my throat. The band had just shifted into something slow when my mother leaned in, smiling for every camera pointed her way, and said, "We're giving the car his parents bought you to your sister." Her voice was light, casual, like she was commenting on the centerpieces. Danielle laughed beside her, sequins scattering light like tiny knives. "Relax," she said. "It's just a car." No one else heard the way my stomach dropped, cold and absolute. My groom didn't say a word. He simply looked at them, calm and unreadable. And that look, more than their words, shifted the ground under us. People say weddings show you who truly loves you. Mine revealed who never had. I grew up in a house where fairness was recited like scripture, but never practiced. My mother, Grace, loved structure, the kind that kept her picture perfect and kept me obedient. My father, Richard, believed quiet solved problems, especially if the quiet came from me. And Danielle, my younger sister, was the fragile one the world supposedly needed to protect. I was the hinge that kept everything moving for her. She got the bigger room because shadows scared her. When she totaled her first car, Mom blamed the weather. I worked double shifts to buy my own car, and Mom called it discipline. Danielle was the excuse for every lesson and sacrifice I was expected to learn. That pattern raised me. Someone always taking, someone always apologizing. Never her. By 29, I had built a life far beyond the limits they had drawn around me. I was an interior designer. Precise, steady, the kind of woman who didn't need to borrow a dress to impress anyone. Meeting Evan felt like stepping into brightness that didn't scorch. He came from a family who actually believed in boundaries, in respect. His parents weren't wealthy, but they were rich in the ways that mattered, listening, caring enough to give space instead of taking it. At our rehearsal dinner, they handed me an envelope with a small silver key. "You built this life together," his father said. "Let this help you move forward." A used car, clean, dependable, titled in my name. It wasn't about the vehicle. It was about trust, a gift you safeguarded. That night, I caught my mom's expression stretched tight, polite, already plotting. She smiled at Evan's parents, but her eyes slid to Danielle like muscle memory. I should have recognized the signal. It was the first move of a sequence I'd seen all my life. The morning of the wedding, she hovered around me, fixing stray curls, whispering how proud she was. "You've always been so giving, Eva," she said, smoothing my veil. "Don't ever lose that." Her perfume drifted around me, sweet, overwhelming, suffocating. I smiled back, pretending the words didn't mean what they always meant. But a part of me already understood. Some gifts weren't meant to be distributed like party favors. The reception felt like a scene running too bright, too loud. Laughter overlapped clinking grasses, guests posing with smiles that belonged in magazines. Evan's hand rested gently on my back as we glided through our first dance. And for one moment, the world felt steady. Then I saw my mother weaving through the crowd, that perfect smile locked in place. She stopped next to us, her perfume heavy in the air, and spoke loudly enough that people at nearby tables turned. "We're passing the car his parents bought you to your sister." The room didn't stop, but it felt like it should have. Someone cracked a joke on the other side of the hall. The band's vocalist leaned into a long note that suddenly sounded like an alarm. Danielle appeared under the fairy lights, glowing, sequins flickering like sparks. "Relax," she said again. "It's just a car." No, it was every piece of my life that had been taken and relabeled as generosity. I looked at my mother's face, composed, delighted, convinced her decision was benevolent. She tilted her head, waiting for me to thank her. You and Evan can get by with one. You've always been practical." A camera flashed, capturing her hand on my arm, her smile wide. No one would see how tightly she gripped me. I didn't answer. Evan's thumb brushed the back of my wrist, a quiet question. "Are you okay?" I breathed in frosting and sharp edges and the familiar old taste of surrender. Dad wandered over, sensing the tension in her voice, and asked, "What's happening?" "Nothing major," Mom said quickly. "We're helping Danielle. She's had impossible luck with cars." Danielle let out her soft practice laugh. "It's fine, Mom. She doesn't mind sharing." Sharing. The word hit like a bruise. I thought about the resume I fixed for her at 2 a.m., the dress she borrowed and never returned, the countless times I cleaned up her mistakes, all disguised as sisterly duty. I smiled then, small, calm, sharp. "You're right," I said. "I don't mind sharing." My mother relaxed, mistaking that tone for compliance. Evan didn't make that mistake. His hand found mine, steady, grounding. Across the room, the lights flickered. Another camera flashed. The air tightened like the second before thunder. I leaned closer to Evan and whispered, "It's happening again." He looked at me with quiet readiness, and in that breath of silence, it became clear. They weren't here to celebrate me. They were here to measure how much of me they still owned. After the cake cutting, when the music mellowed, the crowd trickled out with wine and laughter. I smiled for photos, accepted congratulations that tasted hollow, and counted the seconds until the noise faded. When the last guest drifted away, Evan and I slipped into an empty hallway. He loosened his collar and asked, "Do you want me to talk to them?" "No," I said. My voice didn't tremble. We'd already did. He looked confused. Then it clicked. Months ago, we joked about my mother's habit of transforming my belongings into family property. I'd grown tired of the inheritance of expectation. 2 weeks before the wedding, with the help of my coworker, a paralegal, I signed a notarized declaration. Every gift received in my name was legally protected, not transferable, not sellable, not claimable without my written approval. Evan signed it too. I remember her exact words when she stamped it. "You're not paranoid, you're prepared." Standing in that hallway, Evan laced his fingers through mine. "You knew this was possible." I hoped it wouldn't be, but I wasn't going to walk in unarmed. We stood there, listening to muffled laughter from the reception room. It sounded distant, fading, like something already unraveling. I thought about my mother's expression, the pleasure she took in control masked as kindness. She had trained me for decades to be the gracious daughter, the one who never made scenes. But she never noticed the quiet resolve behind my polite smile. Evan's phone buzzed. A guest had texted, "Your sister's already posting about the car." He turned the screen so I could see. A picture from our garage, Danielle posing proudly beside the car. Her caption, "Finally got a ride that fits me." I laughed once, short and dry. She couldn't even wait until morning. Evan met my eyes. So, what now? I reached for my clutch, fingers brushing the thick envelope inside. "Now," I said, "we let them walk into their own mess." Evan let out a slow breath, something like pride flickering in his expression. "Then let's go finish the party." We straightened our clothes, fixed our smiles, and walked back toward the music. My heart was steady now. The storm had already changed direction. We walked back into the ballroom as the band shifted into another safe, romantic tune, something meant to fill silence. The room glowed gold again, but the air had changed. Conversations felt thinner. Eyes darted away and back. My mother was near the cake table, laughing too loudly, a queen restored to her stage. Danielle hovered beside her phone in hand, pretending to scroll. When she saw us, Mom brightened. "There they are," she called like we'd been gone on a honeymoon already. "Everyone's asking where the bride went." I smiled, handling a few final details. She didn't hear the weight in that sentence. Or maybe she did and thought she could still outplay me. "Good," she said. "We're wrapping up soon. Danielle needs a ride home anyway." Evan stepped forward, just a little. "She has one now, doesn't she?" His voice was light, polite, surgical. Mom blinked. "What, the car? I said you said she's taking it." Danielle tensed, eyes flicking between us. "Oh, come on, Eva," she started. "Don't make this weird." "It's just a car I finished for her," I heard. Dad wandered closer, trying for peacekeeping. "Can we not do this here?" I turned to him, calm. "Here's the thing, Dad. This is where she did it publicly." The band faltered, then kept playing. A few guests turned their heads, the scent of champagne turning sharp. Mom's smile stiffened. "Eva, sweetheart, you're overreacting. It was a misunderstanding. We meant—" Evan held out an envelope. "You might want to read this before you finish that sentence." Her hand hesitated before taking it. She glanced at Danielle, then at me, then unfolded the paper. The rustle was loud enough to cut the music. Danielle leaned in to read over her shoulder. At first, confusion, then recognition, then color draining inch by inch. Mom tried to laugh. "What is this? A notarized declaration?" I said, "Executed 2 weeks ago. It states that all wedding gifts titled in my name can't be sold, gifted, or transferred without my written consent. Any attempt triggers a legal review and forfeits future inheritance from Evan's side." The last words landed like a stone dropped into a still pond. Conversation stopped. Someone whispered, "Oh, wow." Danielle let out a short, panicked laugh. "You can't be serious." I met her eyes, completely. Dad exhaled through his nose. "This is petty, Eva." "No," I said softly. "Petty is pretending theft is family tradition." Mom's voice hardened. "We're family. You don't treat us like criminals." "You went into our garage last night," I replied. "You took photos of the car and posted them." Danielle's face froze. "That was a joke." "Symbolic?" Evan asked quietly. "Symbolic of what, exactly?" Her lips parted, no answer. I turned to Mom. "This isn't about the car, it's about the pattern. You call it love when you take what's mine and tell me I'm good for giving it." "You're being dramatic," she snapped. "Maybe," I said, "but this time the drama has witnesses." A ripple went through the guests, phones half raised, half hidden. Someone's aunt mouthed drama behind her champagne flute. Danielle's voice cracked. "You'd really embarrass the family like this?" "I'm not embarrassing anyone," I said. "I'm just ending the script." Evan took my hand, grounding me. His tone was even, calm. "Mrs. Harper, you should keep that paper. It's legal documentation." Mom stared at him like he'd betrayed her personally. "You encouraged this." "No," he said. "She didn't need encouragement, just respect." Danielle's face turned red. "You married up, didn't you? Think you're better than us now?" Evan didn't answer. I did. "Better? No. Boundaried? Absolutely." The word hung there. Boundaried, like a foreign language in that house. Mom tried again, desperate. "We raised you to be kind. You raised me to give," I said. "You taught her to take." That was the fracture, the one sentence that split the air in half. The band stopped playing altogether. Even the fairy lights seemed to flicker. Danielle stepped closer, trembling. "You'll regret this." I smiled faintly. I already did, for 29 years. For the first time, Mom's perfect composure cracked. Her voice wavered. "Eva, please don't do this in front of everyone." "Then you shouldn't have done it to me in front of everyone." She opened her mouth again, but no words came out. The silence that followed was thick enough to touch. Evan leaned into the band. "Play something," he said quietly. The drummer lifted his sticks, uncertain. The singer looked at me for permission. I nodded. Music rose again. Soft, defiant, a heartbeat. Evan pulled me back to the dance floor. The guests parted like we were royalty, or a bomb. As we moved, I caught reflections in the mirrors. Mom's face pale and still. Danielle's mascara smudged. Dad's staring at the floor. The envelope sat on the table between empty glasses. Evan whispered, "Breathe." "I am," I said. And for once, it was true. When the song ended, I turned to my parents, still frozen near the cake. "Help isn't theft," I said evenly, "and love isn't access." I placed the empty champagne flute beside the envelope and walked away with Evan through a sea of quiet stares. Behind us, the applause didn't come, just whispers, like wind through a cracked door. Outside, under the string lights, I exhaled everything I'd been holding for years. Evan slipped his arm around me. "You okay?" I nodded. "I think I just stopped apologizing." He smiled. "About time." We stepped into the night, the music still humming behind the doors. Somewhere inside, the smile my mother wore all my life finally fell. The drive home was quiet, the kind of quiet that felt earned. The city lights blurred past, soft and far away. I rolled the window down, letting the wind pull at my veil until it came loose and drifted into the night. Evan laughed under his breath. "You just threw away your movie moment." "Good," I said. "I don't want one." We drove in silence after that, hand in hand, the same car they tried to steal humming beneath us. Every mile felt like distance from an old wound. When we reached our house, Evan turned off the engine, but didn't move. "You did it," he said quietly. "I did what broke the pattern." Inside, the kitchen still smelled like the morning coffee we never finished. I slipped out of my shoes, feeling the tile cool under my feet. On the counter sat my phone, buzzing with missed calls. Mom, Danielle, unknown numbers. I turned it face down. Outside, crickets filled the air for the first time. The silence didn't ache, it settled. Evan wrapped his arms around me from behind. "Still want that honeymoon drive?" I smiled. "Let's take the car." A week later, I stood in our kitchen with sunlight spilling across the floor. The same house, the same car in the driveway, but everything inside me felt rewired. On the fridge, one photo remained. The moment at the wedding when Mom's smile cracked and I held the envelope. I used to think it looked harsh. Now it looked honest. I realized freedom didn't roar, it whispered. It was the sound of a phone that didn't ring anymore, of doors I could lock without guilt. People say families fall apart because of pride or money. Maybe. But sometimes they fall apart because one person finally stops pretending. I looked at that photo and whispered, "Boundaries don't destroy families. They define them." If you've ever had to draw a line with someone who called it love, share your story below. You're not alone, and you don't owe anyone your peace.